Cloudcast Media.
Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we're going to be chatting with Milton Brown. He's Dr. Milton Brown from the DBT Center of San Diego, better known as Dialectical Behavior Therapy Center of San Diego. Maybe you can just chat a little bit about the mission of your organization.
We have an established therapy clinic with a handful of therapists that work as a team to provide compassionate, scientifically supported therapies for really severely complex and chronic suicidality and emotion dysregulation problems.
Right. And are you seeing this as a growing business, so to speak, or more people are coming to you with these issues, or it's been there for a while, Drew?
It's been there for a long time. It's a consistent problem in our society that there are many, many challenging forces that lead to a handful of people. Around 10% are some of the estimates for people who struggle to this degree.
That's a big number, is it not?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And, and with this, describe again sort of the balances of cognitive, therapy you were talking about and what you folks do.
Cognitive behavioral therapy is the foundation of this approach. It's a scientifically informed set of change strategies, and it works really well. And our clients who need it desperately, they need a way to change their thoughts, their emotions, and their behaviors. They're very sensitive to change. They feel invalidated when a therapist points out all the ways that they are dysfunctional, need to make changes. So DBT means, in calling it dialectical, it means it's balancing change with acceptance. So the therapist teaches the client how to accept the gap between what needs to change and what will remain. That is unrealistic to change. Only change can happen to a certain degree, and the therapist does a lot of validation to balance out their attempts to help the person change.
Right. How many therapists practice this, if you'd say, of the therapists in the world? Is this a popular approach? Is it a new approach? Is it...
DBT is very, very hot. It has been for some 10 or 20 years.
Gotcha.
So a lot of people get a 1 or 2 day training or are self-study therapists, and a majority of the therapists have a moderate or small amount of training, and the general public doesn't know. There are a lot of people who are really desperate, and they find out correctly, I need DBT to save my life. And somebody they go to, they say, I do DBT, and the therapist doesn't know what they don't know, or the client doesn't correctly understand that there are different levels of training, there's certification, and there's a structure for a DBT team having several modalities, several sessions per week that are organized in a comprehensive and complete manner.
Right. That's pretty dangerous, isn't it?
I believe some people die because of that misunderstanding.
There's no question in that aspect of it. And, we were chatting offline about, listen, I've never been in this type of a mental health crisis, I guess, in this country. We talk about it all the time on our Spotlight show from all ages. Are you seeing a growth in any certain type of age person that you are working with, or that hasn't changed?
At our clinic, we haven't seen any changes in the trends.
Right.
There's a lot of really young people, a lot of teens who are suicidal and chronically dysregulated. We had a suicidal 5-year-old a couple of years ago.
Oh, my goodness.
We have a lot of really older people, retired people that struggle with these problems as well. The average is somewhere around early 20s.
Wow. Any gender? Is there a difference?
Well, that's a debate. A lot more women show up with borderline personality disorder, which is that cluster of symptoms around suicidality and other emotion struggles.
Right.
And a lot of people believe the men just don't show up for therapy as much. They end up more often in jail, prison, with the acting out behaviors that get them into trouble.
Right.
So they look really angry and dysfunctional in their behavior, but there's often a lot of underlying suffering that is designed to protect them from.
Yeah, getting back to what we were talking about before, so how do you find somebody that really is qualified to be in this aspect and then just didn't read about this in a book or whatever the case may be?
The most straightforward way is to go on the internet and you look at the Linehan Board of Certification. There's a database of therapists, but unfortunately it's quite small.
Right.
So that's not good enough for most people. This is a complex topic. It's very difficult to figure that out. So there's a blog that will come out possibly today. CompassBehavioralHealth.com is one of my colleagues up in Tustin. And I just helped them write a blog on this topic.
Yeah.
So you go to their webpage, you click at the top on blog, and it's all laid out.
She was on our show.
She was. Yeah, that's why I'm here.
I know. I think that's fantastic. This is an important thing to talk about without any question. So the blog will come out today, you think, maybe?
Or tomorrow.
Or tomorrow.
Very soon. Just approved.
Yeah. No, so do your research on this aspect. We're chatting with Dr. Milton Brown of the DBT Center of San Diego. I'm Drew Schlosberg. As you're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the community show, the nation's longest-running community podcast. We're now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. Been doing great things for more than 6 decades in our region. This obviously it's a tough topic to discuss. If you are a family member, and how do I talk about this? But correct me if I'm wrong. If somebody in the family is having suicidal thoughts, don't ignore it. Correct?
Absolutely. And some people believe if you talk too much about it, it might prompt suicidal behavior. But if you're compassionate and truly caring and gentle in your approach, it's very unlikely that that's going to cause any problems, and possible that it could help.
Right.
Family members are often blocked from helping. They don't want to talk about it. The person with that struggle feels judged or labeled. So we recommend that family members stay away from diagnoses and insisting on treatment, but more creating a warm invitation, including lowering the bar, saying, hey, I found a therapy that is really focused on these things I've heard you talk about that you struggle with. What about if you show up for a single session and just see if it clicks with you? I think it makes a lot of sense. Could you possibly consider that?
Yeah, right. And then you'd be in a sort of a safe environment on this. For those calling, suicide hotlines or whatever the case may be, probably not a bad thing. At least there's a start, correct? Or am I wrong on that?
Suicide hotlines are so accessible. I'm so glad that they exist.
Right.
They provide support and resources. Unfortunately, I've tested some of them out, and occasionally, not rarely, they don't know about the evidence-based treatments like DBT.
Right.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Right. But it's, as you said, relatively new in the scope of life, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But growing, okay. And how about your primary physician, where a lot of these things start or should start? Are they aware of what's going on with DBT?
You're correct that primary physicians are in a position to screen for depression and suicidality. Sometimes that's built into the structure of their practices.
Right.
And I don't have any data on that,
Yeah.
but I would be surprised if most of them knew about the evidence-based treatments for suicidal behavior.
Yeah. I think what's so interesting about my father was a physician. Okay? So I pretend I know what I'm talking about, for God's sake, in this area. But, back in the physician really would know what's going on. They'd talk to you and all that business. And if there was any issues when it came to the, mental health, then, hey, we need to find a place for you to be comfortable to go to in this. And with DBT being relatively new, you would hope that people would say, listen, there are some therapies out there that are new, that are working, and there's some, metrics behind it. We come back from a quick break. Maybe you can talk about some of the metrics, of how this has worked, how this has helped in positive ways in that aspect of it, and what our listeners can do to help support what you're doing. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
I'm going to be right back with Dr. Milton Brown of DBT Center of San Diego. I'm Drew Schlosberg. This is another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, doing wonderful things in our region for more than 6 decades. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, broadcasts these cool Mission Fed studios in Scripps Ranch, and Mission Fed raising the bar for all of us folk living in San Diego County. Honored to have in the studio with us today Dr. Milton Brown of the DBT Center of San Diego, and talking about a very serious issue, talking to people that are having some pretty heavy thoughts on suicide and stuff, and DBT, relatively new therapy. Last 20 years or so, you saying? 20, 30 years?
20 years since it's really picked up and gotten noticed.
Yeah, exactly on this. And, we were talking about, what's the best way to find a true DBT therapist, and that aspect of it. What was the group you said they should take a look at?
The Linehan Board of Certification.
Yeah. I think that's a good one on this. So, we were mentioning earlier, Milton, that tough thing to talk about, but talk about if success is the right word, and I think it would be the right word. When you're working with people, how do you measure your success?
Objective indicators of functioning. So many people are so much struggling, and they spend so much time in and out of the hospital and such that they're not working, for instance. So when we get them integrated into society, doing normal things that are productive, things that engage them with their communities, that makes a huge difference. So staying out of the hospital and doing things that are work-related or work-like behaviors, like volunteering, it doesn't matter if it's paid, but being actively engaged in life.
Right, exactly. So, people that come in or recommended to you or referred to you, whatever the case may be, and the folks that are in your practice, is it one session? Is it two sessions? It's as many sessions as you feel the person is on the right track. Is there a right track? How do you know?
How far to go? How do we know how much therapy to provide?
Correct.
So borderline personality disorder is one of the assessments we do to understand the severity and complexity of the emotion struggles.
Right.
So the research on DBT is for borderline personality disorder, people who have that condition plus suicidality.
Right.
So the norm in research, the standard is 1 year of twice per week sessions.
Gotcha. Right.
Once per week, one-on-one with a therapist, and once per week doing skills training, skills for coping with emotions and being more effective with behavior, once per week, usually in a group format. So usually
interesting
2 per week.
Okay, other folks that have the same situation on this, right? And then you were mentioning that what does typical is a bad word, but the age range. You were telling me shockingly that saw someone at 5 years old had suicidal thoughts and all that business, but mostly in their 20s or whatever the case may be. Are you seeing more younger people thinking about all this?
We've seen pretty consistent pattern of parents bringing their teens in who've who have been struggling with suicidality, and young people in their 20s coming in on their own. I think those patterns have been pretty consistent.
You were saying that, right?
We have about equally sized programs, a teen program and an adult program.
Right.
So they're about equally represented, and I think that's been pretty consistent.
Right. How do the schools who have so much, my daughter's a teacher, and obviously, like all teachers these days, they see what's going on, and they can't play therapist, but they should see if there's some issues going on. Are the schools, the schools know about this therapy or know about this is here?
There may be some exceptions, but I've checked this out thoroughly, and no, they don't.
But shouldn't they?
Yes, and I made a very big effort to try to connect with the San Diego Unified School District.
Okay.
And I could barely get any conversation set up, no follow-through. Nobody took it seriously when I made a very substantial effort to get a conversation going amongst high-level people in the mental health areas of the school district.
Right. I worked for San Diego Unified a billion years ago in this aspect. Have you worked with the County Office of Education at all? Have you talked to any folks there?
I got passed around here and there when I said, hey, this isn't going anywhere, and it just never went anywhere. So I was so confused. Nobody took me under their wing and explained what I should do and how I should say it and who I should go to. I followed some leads, and it just never got anywhere, and I just got so hopeless and frustrated and felt like it was just my issue and nobody was joining me.
Yeah, well, we see if we can correct it. We work very closely with the County Office of Education, so maybe we can find a path on this aspect of it.
That would be great.
Well, you hear about this, obviously you hear about the mental health of the kids and nonstop. We've had folks on here so the mental health crisis is exponential. And it's growing by leaps and bounds. Not enough therapists to chat with the kids. We all know that. And yours is very specific in this area here. Would you say, is DBT practiced anywhere more here than it is around the country, or not necessarily?
It's pretty much all over the country. It's very hot. So a lot of people are learning it thoroughly, and a lot of people are learning it a little bit. There's a whole range of therapists, a whole bunch of them who have learned various degrees of it, trying to integrate it to some degree, even if they don't do it well.
Right, exactly. So do you go to the colleges and the school, people that are getting their degrees in psychology or advanced degrees or PhDs and all this, in your mind, do they know what's going on in this field as much as they should?
Most psychology training programs have exposure to DBT, a DBT class, or some other learning mechanisms in place, some training settings that are tied to the universities. Absolutely. That's very common.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good to hear. What would you, so for our listeners, what would you suggest to them to help support your efforts or getting more word out on this very, very important, certainly a critical issue?
Well, of course, just generally getting the word out in whatever settings are relevant when people happen to come in contact with people who are struggling with suicide or work with physicians or teachers or whatever. I'm thinking mainly two areas to really focus on. One of them is anybody with connections to the schools, counselors, teachers. I think there needs to be a press through, I don't know all the local government mechanisms, City Hall or the Board of Supervisors, I don't know, but I think there should be a process in place where there's a standard for reliable information about evidence-based treatments for which it is known they cut suicide rates in half. There needs to be an informational handout of these 4 therapies, of which DBT is one. When a suicidal teen pops up in a high school, I think the parent should be given the handout rather than relying, and I think it should be required a standard part of the process of informing families of the options that could save their teen's life.
Right.
I made such a handout, and I'm just waiting to, I don't know if that's the best idea or the only idea, but that's one of my ideas.
Well, listen, information is important information and needs to be said once, twice, 4 billion times over and over. That's why we do this show for 18 years. You can't talk about things just once. You got to talk about it, many times in it. And you're right. It's getting it into the hands of the right person who will certainly spread that word and say this is something that should be at minimum, available to parents or to the schools or whatever the case may be.
And the other area is insurance companies need to be pressed. There are so many people who know that excuse me, DBT is warranted as medically necessary treatment to possibly save their life, and insurance companies refuse to provide it. And I have a handful of people, I guide them on going back to their insurance company and complaining in writing, making an appeal, and sometimes going up to the insurance commissioner of California. There's various levels to complain, and if there's enough people complaining, individuals can break through and get coverage. And that's one of the biggest barriers, not knowing that it exists, but getting it covered. It's a comprehensive therapy. It costs a lot of money, and insurance should pay for it. But they're trying not to pay for it. A lot of people need to press their insurance companies.
And that will be successful, or has been successful, I should say?
With individuals. But I think if more people do it,
sure.
broadly, then maybe there could be some changes to make it flow a little bit easier without having to go through 3 months of fighting to get a treatment to save your life.
Right, but if that's on your website, DBT San Diego, and say, here's what you need to be aware of with insurance companies, okay? You can get, a compensation, but here are the steps you should take that will cut through some of this. Is that on your website?
No, because it's so complicated.
So it's more than just these are the 5 things to do. It's
really complicated. I have a 2-page email that I send out to people when they contact me. I said, well, let me give you some information. And it's like pages of guidance with specific suggestions, like get evaluated by a psychiatrist, have them write a letter saying DBT is medically necessary for my condition, fax it into your insurance company, and if they don't respond, file a complaint.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Right. But if that's on your website.
It's not on the webpage.
Okay.
But I send it out to people on a case-by-case basis.
But if you put that on the website, click here for those, now you're giving the guys, the folks the tools, right?
I can certainly do that. Thank you for that idea.
Yeah.
I don't think that very many people would stumble across it, but I hope we can have some mechanism to really raise awareness. Well, like this podcast. Here we go.
Well, these are things that most people aren't aware of, to say the least. And you got to talk about it, and then you're going to hear, God, I thought I heard something about DBT. What is this? It's a very popular. It's growing. How come we don't know about this? Well, you got to start somewhere in that aspect of it. How do people get a hold of you, Milton?
dbtsandiego.com.
Okay.
Several ways to get a hold of me through the website. And I will take your suggestion, Drew, to put this information on the webpage.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great. I mean, so you run into it, you've already gone through these things that's very traumatic as it is. I need this type of therapy. And now my insurance company is saying no. That's a double, whammy on this. But here's some steps that no guarantee it's going to work, but there has been success stories on it.
Absolutely.
And listen, talk to your kids' school if they are in school. They should be aware of this aspect. As it is, it's just more information to deal with something that's very serious.
Absolutely.
Very good. One more time, shout out the website.
dbtsandiego.com.
Well, I appreciate you coming in. Milton, thanks for talking about a very serious subject, and we'll look forward to hearing how things are going once you put that stuff on your website.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You bet. As Milton Brown, Dr. Milton Brown of the DBT Center of San Diego. Very compelling interview on a very, very serious subject. I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, doing great things for San Diegans for more than 6 decades. We hope you enjoyed the show.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.